I am so tired of coming on this podcast every single week and telling you to stop playing T.Y. Hilton. Like, just stop it.
Mikey needs help.
Mikey needs help.
I was like, if you don't have Jeff Wilson in here, and if you don't run it on first down, I'm gonna strangle you through that TV.
You should know better than everyone else. That fool tears you up when you plays you.
Yeah, but he
Don't you want him on your team?
I have him at number 25.
Thank you. Fine. Todd's the reasonable one on this show.
I take issue with everything he said there.
Well,
I really do.
DeAndre Swift. He's going to break them tackles, son.
That's bold. That's bold. That's putting your nuts on the table right there.
Hey, there's the first time for everything.
Waxing poetic over here with Todd Diamond.
Dude's old.
So what? He's not as old as Brady, and you're jerking him off before the show starts.
I have Sutton in my top 10. I have him at number 9. Yes.
You know what? I'm just canceling the league. I can't do this with you guys. All right, time to get into some quarterback talk on this edition of the MHA Podcast. Is Patrick Mahomes the top QB? Where should we draft Aaron Rodgers? And we get into some rankings dispute, which is always fun, arguing about why Todd is wrong, why the rest of us are right. So you'll get a head start on scouting the competition, listening to where us three have our quarterbacks ranked. Derek Lansing here leading the way, and as always with me is Mikey Renault and Todd Diamond. What's up, fellas? How are we doing this Wednesday night, right? Yeah, Wednesday night. How you guys doing?
All right. Ready to talk some quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think I'm the most excited about this one.
For the one person who waits the least, who waits the longest to draft quarterbacks, that's very interesting. I'm intrigued now.
I think there's just a lot of storylines going on with the quarterbacks. So, yeah, it should make it pretty interesting.
I like it.
All right, so before we start telling the rest of the league where we rank our QBs, let's bring you some football news.
To me, the most amazing thing about the news is that whatever goes on in the world, it exactly fits the number of pages that they're using in the paper that day. Interesting concept.
And we start with some bad news that came out just yesterday, and that was the news that Rams starting running back Cam Akers ruptured his Achilles. He was working out and will miss this entire 2021 season. This is news you hate to hear, both in just feeling awful for the guy who had a successful rookie season in Los Angeles, but those fantasy owners who lose a potential breakout running back for this season. Akers led the team in rushing, 625 yards, 2 TDs, had 11 receptions, and 123 yards, and also had a receiving touchdown. Boy, was he money in the playoffs, 4.8 yards per carry, along with averaging about 110 yards per game in the 2 playoff games. The backups, here are the backups on the Rams team. Darrell Henderson Jr., who ran for 624 yards, 1 yard behind Cam Akers. And behind him, Xavier Jones and Jake Funk. I'm sure we're all going to be raising Henderson in our rankings, but when you heard the news, Mikey, about this, what kind of went through your mind?
It's a tough break. I mean, he's going to be an up-and-coming guy that everybody kind of was looking at, and now we're back to the land of Darrell Henderson, so, hey.
Does that mean, Todd, we don't like Darrell Henderson, the way Mikey just described that?
Darrell Henderson was on my team last year, and there was definitely some games where he would, he'd look like a top 10, top 5 running back. So I'm very high on Darrell Henderson. So that's kind of, I mean, Cam Akers definitely is the more versatile back, but Darrell Henderson can, he can run through the tackles a lot better. Catching not the greatest, but he can get those touchdowns, and that's the end of the day is what you want. So I am very high. So when we get to running back rankings, you're going to be probably not going to be very surprised where I have him ranked. So, yeah.
Well, we'll talk about running backs in either the next show or the following show. But Cam Akers, 145 rushing attempts last year. Darrell Henderson, 138. You also had Malcolm Brown, who's gone. He had 101 attempts. So there you go. There could be 300 attempts. I doubt it'll be that high, but Darrell Henderson, unless they pick someone else or make a trade, he's going to get a bunch of the carries. We'll keep going on with the news here. Where in the world is quarterback Aaron Rodgers? Well, we don't know. He hasn't figured that out yet. We did hear the Packers offered him a 2-year extension on his already 3-year deal. Would have made him the highest paid gunslinger in the NFL. We'll talk more about we'll talk more about Rodgers later on, but the sign that he may not be back with the Packers, or he could be really just kind of yanking their chain and then he'll be back. But right now, still doesn't have a home. Saquon Barkley says, we'll see, when asked if he would be ready for week 1. That's great to hear. Sounds like he's still not 100%. And while I'm sure we're really getting to Barkley on the running backs episode, Todd, when you heard that news, did you think about lowering him in your rankings?
I mean, again, I couldn't believe it when I see it. I mean, the fact of the matter is, like I said in the last podcast, 2 back-to-back years of injuries, and right off the bat, and I don't know. Again, running back. You want to find a top flight running back first, but I don't know. Saquon, I don't know. He gets hurt, you're done. I mean, we saw what happened. With McCaffrey, you kind of weather the storm a little bit, but yeah, Saquon's going. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think when we talked about Najee Harris, I'll pick him over Saquon because at least I know, the injury history is not really big with him. So Saquon might be just dropping just because of injury. I mean, the upside obviously is there. Obviously, it's high risk, high reward, but I'm a little skeptical. I wouldn't probably draft a wide receiver over Saquon.
Well, if anybody knows anything about being done, it's Todd Diamond. Mikey, Saquon Barkley is 24 years. Oh, Saquon Barkley's 24 years old, still young. Scenario for you. Let's say Saquon gets some action in the final preseason game. Let's say he gets 10 carries. How are you ranking him? Is he going to be lower in your running back, or is the upside just too good that'll still maybe be a top 5 or 6 running back for you?
Well, I'll say this. If he gets action in any of the preseason games, then I got no problem drafting him at all in the first round. The problem is I don't think he's going to get any action in the preseason, so I don't think anybody's going to know when he's going to be ready. If it's October like they say, I think you got to bump him down a little bit.
So definitely keep an eye on the preseason for Saquon Barkley. Just makes me freaking out about it right now. The last thing I have, and I don't know if this is big news, but it's fantasy news anyway. Ted Ginn Jr., guys, retired. The Ohio State product, drafted 9th overall. I was surprised to hear that. 9th overall in 2007, and never really lived up to his draft positioning or draft placement, or what do you want to call it. Played a long time in the NFL, though. His best fantasy season arguably came in 2015 when he got 44 balls, 739 yards, and 10 touchdowns with Carolina. He played for Miami, San Francisco, Carolina, as we mentioned, Arizona, New Orleans, and Chicago. Anybody want to say anything about Ted Ginn Jr.? Any good Ted Ginn Jr. stories, or should we just move on?
Let's just move on, because I'll say this: the reason the Dolphins drafted him because they were trying to say, he could be another Devin Hester. Yeah, it didn't happen. That was the whole reason why they drafted him. No, that was hand to God. That's what they asked him. Like, I think he could be, he can be our returner. First of all, you're not drafting a returner at number 9. I don't care how good he is. And they were trying to, they were trying to turn him into Devin Hester. So, you lose, you win some, you lose some. And in that case, they lost.
Mikey, anything you want to say?
So I'll say, there's your one Devin Hester mention for the night, Todd. Okay,
you
get one.
Thank
you.
You
Used it up early.
Thank you.
No, I don't got anything to say about Ted Ginn Jr. I never ever, I don't think, had him on my team. So
never ever, huh?
I don't think so. He's not my type of guy.
All right, so we'll just continue on here. Let's get into some quarterback talk, and we'll start things off with some MHA trivia.
If my answers frighten you, Vincent, then you should cease asking scary questions.
I'm gonna take.
Mikey, you ready to get back into this thing? You're down 2-0.
Oh boy.
What do you think I'm going to ask you? It's obviously about quarterbacks, but what do you think I'm going to ask you?
Honestly, I have no idea. You always surprise us, so
Yeah. I don't know. This might be difficult. There's a lot. I don't know. I probably went a little too overboard on this, but I went with it and ran. So here we go. Here's the question. Out of the quarterbacks that finished in the top 12 in our league last season, how many of those were drafted as top 12 quarterbacks? See what I'm saying there? So out of the 12 quarterbacks that finished, these quarterbacks finished in the top 12 in points in our league last year. How many of those were drafted as top 12 quarterbacks? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
You get that, Todd? I know that might sound a little confusing. Okay, so I'm not gonna ask you to give me the guys yet. All I'm asking for is a number. So out of those 12, how many were drafted as top 12? So give me a number. So is it 12 out of 12, 5 out of 12, 2 out of 12? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So Mikey, go ahead, Todd. You have a number, I think.
I'll go with 6.
Okay, Todd says 6. Mikey.
I'm gonna say, let's say 7.
The answer was 8, so Mikey gets the point. So it's all right. There's plenty of time to catch up. There's other points. So 8 of the quarterbacks that finished in the top 12 were drafted as top 12 quarterbacks. So the next question, can you guys name me the 4 that were drafted in the top 12 but did not finish in the top 12? Does that make sense? So tell me the guys that were drafted as top 12 last year but did not finish in the top 12. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That makes sense.
All right, Mikey, since you got the point, we'll let Todd go first.
All right. Yeah. Let's see. So the 4, Joe Burrow.
No, that is not correct. Mikey, your turn to give me an answer.
Drew Brees.
Drew Brees is correct. Well done, Miguel. You pick up another point. You've got 2. Drew Brees is off the board. Todd?
Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That is incorrect. Back to Mikey.
I'll say Dak Prescott.
Dak Prescott is correct. Are you understanding the question, Todd?
It's one that didn't finish, because Patrick Mahomes probably finished in the okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He still finished in the top 12. So, Todd, back to you. So we have Drew Brees and Dak Prescott. They're off the board. There's 2 more names that were drafted in the top 12 but didn't finish in the top 12.
Yeah, it always makes sense to go with injury-related guys.
Exactly. Although these 2 guys weren't super injury-prone.
Matt Ryan?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's incorrect. Back to Mikey.
I'm going to say, because if I remember correctly, I think, and I can't remember who did it. I think it might have been Miles, but I'm going to say Lamar Jackson.
That is correct. Mikey is rolling right now. He's got 4 points. I'll give you one more chance here to get this one, and then we're going to move on because we still got a lot to go. So, Todd, I'll give you one more. Try to figure out this last name.
Derek Carr?
Oh, I'm sorry, no. Carson Wentz was that gentleman. Carson Wentz was drafted, actually the 12th quarterback drafted, and he finished 23rd. So I'll go through these real quick. Drew Brees was drafted 7th and finished 20th. Obviously, major injury there. Dak Prescott was drafted 6th and finished 34th. Lamar Jackson was the 2nd quarterback taken overall and finished 17th. And I believe he played in all 16 games. I'll get that for you here in just a moment. 15 games. So there you go. So here's the other question. Can you name the 4 quarterbacks who are not drafted in the top 12, but then finished in the top 12? Does that make sense?
So the ones that did finish.
Yes.
Okay.
So Todd, I'll let you go first. You're down 4-1, so you really need to go here.
Justin Herbert?
That is correct. Good job, Todd. Justin Herbert was not even drafted in our draft last year, and he finished 8th overall. Good job, Todd. Mikey?
It's got to be Josh Allen.
Correct. He was drafted 19th. And do you guys know where he finished points overall?
No. But it's got to be top 5 at least.
Like how many points, or just where?
Points. Where he finished amongst our quarterbacks in our league in points.
Let's say the number 900 something.
I'm not asking for the points. I'm asking if he finished 1st, 2nd, 3rd.
Oh,
4th,
that's what
5th.
it says. He finished first.
That is correct. Way to go, Todd. He ended up having 850 points. So Mikey said Josh Allen. He picks up another point. He's up to 5. Todd, give me another name. guy that was not drafted in the top 12, but ended up finishing there.
Matthew Stafford.
I'm sorry, that's incorrect. Mikey, you want to throw another name out there? These two gentlemen finished 11th and 12th at the end of the season.
I'm gonna say
one of these guys were not
Kirk
drafted.
Cousins.
Kirk Cousins, very good. Mikey is killing it today. He was drafted 20th overall and finished 11th. And the final guy was Ryan Tannehill, who was not even drafted and finished 12th overall. So just goes to show the position at quarterback is pretty volatile. I mean, you have your guys. You had Patrick Mahomes, who was drafted first overall in our league and finished third. Deshaun Watson, third, and then finished sixth. Kyler Murray, drafted fourth, finished seventh. Russell Wilson, fifth, then finished fourth. So, but then you have some guys that just popped in there. So it's always interesting to decide when do you take a quarterback. You can wait and pick up a guy that ends up surprising you. Even if you go with a guy early like Lamar Jackson, it could be a huge disappointment. Or, of course, injuries and so forth and so forth. So that kind of goes into the next question. We always kind of talk about this as our strategy for drafting quarterbacks. We always talk about it's a deep position. We just mentioned it's kind of volatile. We always talk about waiting and, picking up those running backs and tight ends and wide receivers before you pick your first QB. Are we feeling the same way this year, Todd? Are you going to wait? Or are you interested in getting a guy in the first couple of rounds?
Oh, I'm gonna wait. I mean, it's long from the days where in the first round of our drafts, quarterbacks pretty much would, all across the board. No, I'm waiting. I'm waiting on a quarterback because, like I said, it sounds like an old broken record every time I say it, but I say it anyway. Running backs they're hard to come by. They're hard to come by, and trying to scramble for a running back compared to a quarterback. It's a little bit more. It's a little bit more difficult to go find a running back than it is a quarterback. So I'm gonna wait on a quarterback.
Mikey, you've always told us that you like to wait. We've seen you get guys maybe a little earlier. I know you went through Andrew Luck, and maybe that was the final straw for you. But how are you feeling about this year's draft, or at least this year's quarterback class? And are we still waiting this year?
Well, normally my strategy is to wait.
Uh-oh.
But this year,
watch out.
Yeah. This year may be a little bit different. Just a little bit of sneak preview.
Oh, is there a reason for that? Is it just more of a chest feeling thing, or is it because you want to get one of the top guys?
I just don't feel like this is a very deep class at all.
Ooh. That's kind of the next question, so we'll just pop it off from there, and I'll let you go. The position not deep for you this year?
No, not at all. I mean, and there's a couple reasons for this. I mean, you're losing Drew Brees to retirement. Phillip Rivers, who is at least a decent guy, retired as well. The uncertainty with Deshaun Watson, who I don't think is going to play at all this year, who was a top 5 guy, and Aaron Rodgers, who nobody knows, who is also a top 5 guy. So I think you're losing a lot, and there's question marks with the guys that are kind of up and coming. So I think there's those elite guys, and then there's a bunch of question marks.
All right. I like that. That's interesting. Todd, is this, in your opinion, I mean, you said you'd wait, so do you feel comfortable drafting or waiting on a quarterback? Or, if Mikey's saying there's only a couple elite guys, you must feel a little different, or at least feel like the difference between the elite and the second or third tiers of those guys are still relatively close.
Yes, I do. I believe you can still win with, tier 2 and tier 3 guys, because you can have one of the top guys, but if if the rest of your team isn't very good, you have Patrick Mahomes, great, put up 50, 60 points, that's great, but if the rest of your team isn't very stacked or didn't draft very well, then you're still going to lose. So to me at this point, I can find a tier 2, tier 3 guy that can at least put up, at least 40, maybe close to 50 points a week for me. And you're telling me I can get 2 top tier running backs and 2 top tier wide receivers, and they can make up for that? Why not?
All right. I'm going to kind of side with Todd on this one, which I hate to say, but I think I think Mikey's right in terms of it's really top heavy,
Mhm.
but I still think you can win going into the 12th, 13th, and 14th guys. And again, it's just more of it's always about how you feel when you draft. If there's a running back that you feel, I mean, you lose Cam Akers, so that takes a running back off the board. But in terms of just how you feel in terms of where you would pick up said quarterback over this second running back for your team or first wide receiver on your team, or if Darren Waller is in the mix or a tight end that you might be coveting, I think it's always about feeling. But I feel like if I miss out on Patrick Mahomes or the Josh Allens or the Dak Prescotts of the world, I'll be okay. However, if they fall to a certain range, I'm also willing to take a risk as well. So Mikey, and this is where we're going to get a little, I don't know, we're going to divulge a lot of information here. And obviously things can change. We're so early. We're still in the summer months here. We're still July 21st here. But Mikey, how many quarterbacks, and this number is going to be lower for you than me and myself and Todd, but how many quarterbacks do you feel comfortable drafting as your number one QB?
This is a tough question.
Well, it's also pretty revealing, right? Like, obviously things can change, but it's like, okay, we know where they may draft these guys and where we can kind of take advantage of knowing where they're going to take these guys.
Yeah, you used the word comfortable. I like that. So
well, again, it's a feeling, right? I think for all of us, it's gut feelings, whether they're right or wrong. They're feelings.
So I'm going to say 8.
Okay, that's a little bigger than I thought you were going to go based on your last statement. So, who is that 8th quarterback?
On my list, it's Joe Burrow.
Okay, so I have all three of our rankings right in front of us. So he says Joe Burrow is the last guy would be comfortable as a starting quarterback. So Prescott, Mahomes, I know I'm revealing some stuff here. Prescott, Mahomes, Allen, Brady, Wilson, Herbert. Behind him, Murray, Burrow, Stafford, and Tannehill. Todd, what about you?
I would probably say he said the top 8 quarterbacks.
For Mikey, it's top 8.
Top
for
8.
You, out of the quarterbacks, so you said if you feel it's deep,
Yeah.
what would be the last quarterback you feel comfortable taking as your number one guy?
As my number one guy, I'm probably at I'd probably say at number 12.
Todd, I sent you these questions yesterday.
Well, I know. Well, but it, just as I'm looking, because it's kind of 1 and 1A between 11 and 12. But I'll say 12 just for purposes.
Sure, and for Todd's rankings, he mentioned Joe Burrow at 11, Matt Stafford at 12, Ryan Tannehill at 13. For me, in terms of comfort, I would think. I mean, I think comfort-wise, if I felt I was really good at running backs and wide receivers, I feel like I could wait. We go back to Joe Burrow again. Joe Burrow, Matt Ryan. I would probably be okay with Ryan Tannehill as well, since they got Julio now. So for me, that's like 13. So 13 for me, you have 8 for Mikey, and you have about 12 for Todd. So going on here, should owners draft a backup quarterback? So you draft your first guy. You draft who would be the first? Let's just go with that first. Todd, should owners draft a backup quarterback in our league?
Yes, and it's just more for obviously for injury purposes, or if you're, I know Mikey's done this in the past before, is matchup purposes too, drafting 2 quarterbacks and where you kind of just play the matchups. But yes, you definitely need to at least draft a backup quarterback, because you just don't know what is going to happen. It depends on who is your number one quarterback, because if that number one quarterback, it puts up all these stats, but also has a little bit of a history of injuries, that backup quarterback that you drafted might come in handy a little bit. So I would say yes.
Might come in handy. I just like how you phrase that. It's great. Do you feel the same way, Miguel? If you draft Patrick Mahomes, are you drafting a backup quarterback?
I think you always do. I mean, our rounds go long enough where I think it's a good idea. I would say in you guys' case, if you think this starters are 12 and 13 deep, you better draft a backup quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I was just going to say that was going to be my next sentence. So if you drafted Matt Stafford or Joe Burrow or Big Ben, you might be one of the first ones to take a backup because those are guys that are probably less certain, especially if you go with some of the older guys like Kirk Cousins and Big Ben. You don't know how injuries are going to pan out for them, so it might be a good idea to draft a backup. So, all right, let's go into some of these rankings a little bit. Is Patrick Mahomes the number one QB in our league? And I kind of spoiled it, but Mikey did not choose Patrick Mahomes. Mikey, who'd you go with?
I went with Dak Prescott.
All right, tell the league why Patrick Mahomes is not the number one guy and Dak Prescott is.
All right, so I'm going to say this. So Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league, bar none. No question. However, I believe, and we kind of saw this play out in the first few games of last year before the injury happened, I just feel like as bad as that Dallas defense is, and even though they picked up some guys in the draft, I still think it's going to be a bad defense. And Dallas has all these weapons offensively. I believe the upside for Prescott is greater. So I was willing to bump him over Mahomes, just slightly.
Yes, there's a lot to like about Dak Prescott. He's got the second easiest schedule in the NFL. If his O-line returns to health, they're an older group, but they were a top 5 unit when they're healthy, and his weapons are undeniable. No concerns about the injury. You feel it happened in week 10 or week 11?
No. It wasn't that late. I mean,
it said he played in 10 games last year.
It had to be like week 5 or 6. I would have thought. It was pretty early.
Yeah, you're right. He said only played 5 games. I don't know why I have 10 games. Maybe I was looking at something else. Maybe I read the bye week. So 5 games. So I guess that's long enough to where you feel he's healthy and ready to roll. Like if there's any setback or I don't want to say setback. It's a tough word, but I guess it's how many preseason games he plays. If he doesn't play any preseason games, is that put you off on him at all to move him down?
I don't think so. I mean, he himself has said he's ready to roll for training camp, so that's good enough for me.
All right, Todd, you're a Patrick Mahomes guy like I am. Why do you like Patrick Mahomes over guys like Allen, Prescott, and Murray?
Consistency. I mean, you know what you're getting from Mahomes. There's no surprises. They're gonna throw the ball around a lot. He's gonna rush. He's gonna rush for some touchdowns. It's kind of a no-brainer. It just kind of goes back to the old adage with, running backs with LaDainian Tomlinson. You know what you were getting with them. It was just plug them in and boom. Obviously LaDainian Tomlinson get 50 points, but 50 or 60. But Mahomes is going to put up 50, 60 points every single week, no matter what. I mean, even when he has like a kind of mediocre game or whatever, he still puts up at least 40, close to 50. So it's just a no-brainer. It's just a no-brainer. That's it. That's all I can really say. It's easy. It's easy.
So I just want to throw this out here. So these are the 3 games before the injury for Dak Prescott as far as his completions go. 34, 37, and 41. Each of those games was over 450 yards passing, and he had a total of 8 touchdowns. So it just kind of gives you an idea. And all those games were games that they were just in shootouts back and forth. I just don't see that changing.
Will it change if Zeke is back to form? Now, a big part of that was because of the injuries they had to the offensive line. If the offensive line gets back to what it's doing, Zeke gets back to being a top 3-5 running back, will that take away from Dak Prescott, or is the defense going to be that bad where everybody gets to feast on offense?
I think everybody gets to, I think it's more of a philosophy offensively. Like Mike McCarthy, when they were in Green Bay, they weren't like a let's stick to running the ball type team. It's more of a, we've got the talent through our passing game. Let's throw the ball. And when we get in the red zone, let's throw it instead of running it in. That's been a kind of a trend with Zeke, lately. is he hasn't really been a factor in the red zone because they've been preferring to throw the ball. So, yeah, I just see that continuing.
So last year, Dak was hurt. The offensive line was hurt. Zeke didn't have a good year, probably because of that. 2 years ago, Zeke finished second with 1,300 yards, rushing 12 touchdowns, 54 receptions. And in that same season, Dak Prescott finished first. So that answers that question right out of the gate. All right, so we know who we're drafting first. Who are we drafting second? And for Mikey, maybe Mahomes is in that group. For Todd and I, it could be Josh Allen, could be Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson. Mikey, is Patrick Mahomes your number 2 guy, or who should people start thinking about as the number 2 after Prescott is off the board?
Yeah, Mahomes is my number 2 guy. Like I said, it was a really close 1-2 between Prescott and Mahomes, so it made putting Mahomes 2 pretty easy for me.
Todd, what about you? Your number 2 overall QB.
I have Josh Allen.
So Josh Allen exploded onto the football scene last year. Everybody was concerned about his completion percentage, that he wouldn't rack up completions. Didn't have much offense in terms of or weapons and for the offense. And boy, did everything just change for him last season. 4,500 yards passing, 37 touchdowns, only 10 picks, 421 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns. So as I mentioned, finished first in our system in points. Josh Allen number 2. You still feel good about that? It wasn't a 1-year thing.
No, I think getting Stephon Diggs, that was just, I think that's what definitely changed a lot for Josh Allen. Their running game, Josh Allen is their goal line back. Obviously we'll see if they want him to keep doing that because they don't want him to get injured. But no, Josh Allen last year, what Josh Allen did, yeah, no doubt about it. He's definitely elevated himself to, one of the best quarterbacks, not just in fantasy but in reality. So I'm Josh Allen number 2 behind Mahomes. It's all good.
Mikey, you also have Allen behind Mahomes as your number 3. Anything you want to mention about Josh Allen?
I think Todd made a really good point. Like, when it comes down to inside the 20, like if Buffalo had any other option, like as a running back to go to, then I don't think he'd be as high as he is. But when they get down there, it's whether it's with his arm or with his legs, it's like Josh Allen or bust for them. And it's a really good offense that just continues to get better. So, yeah, I think top 3 is solid for him.
You're saying because he added Emmanuel Sanders that they got better? Is that what you're saying to me right now?
No. I said it's an improving offense. If you're looking at Emmanuel Sanders, they basically switched him out with John Brown. It's like, at this point in his career, is he better than John Brown? Probably. Like, John Brown's like, eh. So I don't even think that's like a big deal, to be honest.
I'm just giving you crap because I hate Emmanuel Sanders that much. The one thing I'll say about Buffalo is their offensive line is not the best in terms of running, which obviously helps them in that regard, other than, Josh Allen, when it starts to break down, he can make things happen on his own to run, but they're pretty solid against the pass. And their running game has not gotten better than last year, so this could be another volume-filled year for Josh Allen. Okay, Russell Wilson. Boy, he was electric. Talk about letting Russell Wilson cook. What a interesting season. He kind of faltered towards the end there. How are we viewing Russell Wilson as we head into this season, Miguel?
He's definitely still a top 5 guy for me. Seattle, I believe if they're going to win, then they're still going to need him to be the sole focus of their offense. I was intrigued and happy to see that they finally got rid of Brian Schottenheimer as their OC because he's more of a run-centric coordinator. So I think having somebody new in there may change maybe a philosophy. They're better when he's the main focus in throwing the ball. So I think he should be top 5 right up there where he usually is.
Some quick notes before I ask Todd about Russell Wilson. He finished 4th overall in points, so incredible. 4,200 yards, 40 pass touchdowns, 513 rush yards, 2 rush TDs. But if you look at things as kind of in halves, so in the first 8 games, he had 28 passing touchdowns. He only had 12 in the final 8 games. In one of those 8 games where he only had 12, 4 of those came in one game, and that was against the Jets. Also, in the first 8 games, he averaged 37 attempts per game. In the final 8, fell by 5, so only 32 attempts per game. In the first 8 games, he had 5 300-yard games, 0 in the final 8, and not to mention, he gets sacked a lot. They never seem to do a good job bringing in guys or drafting them to really help out, and their offensive line's going to not be great again this year. But Todd, what do you think about Russell Wilson? I mean, Aaron, who was just killing everyone because he had Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf, but it kind of was his undoing as he did. I mean, he got to the championship game first, so take that for what it's worth. But his team wasn't as scary later down the stretch. So, how are you viewing Russell Wilson? Does that bother you at all?
I mean, I've Wilson ranked 6th in my rankings. I mean, you're right about the offensive line because he was running for his life a lot of the time. But Russell Wilson's still really scary when it comes to putting up putting up a lot of yards and a lot of completions and touchdowns. And the fact what makes it really good, the fact they finally got him a wide receiver in DK Metcalf. Who's not 5'11", who's a tall, athletic wide receiver that he can throw the ball down to, and I think that helps him too. But yes, he did run out of gas toward the end, but I think that was just Russell Wilson trying to do everything. As I said, the running game definitely is a factor too, because the running backs just keep getting hurt all the way too, so that puts more pressure on Russell Wilson. But Russell Wilson is still a top tier quarterback no matter what. You just hope, what he did last year for Aaron's team all the way through, you're thinking, oh, he's gonna be unstoppable. They're just gonna just keep it, and he finally just ran out of gas. So, opportunity to draft Russell Wilson, yes, I'll still do it, but they have to, they got him a good weapon. Now they just got to fix that offensive line, and they didn't do that. So we'll see how it goes.
They also have a pretty hard schedule this year if you go by that type of stat or scenario. But I also have him ranked 5th. A guy that you have ranked over Russell Wilson, Todd, is Aaron Rodgers. Now, I asked you this question, and this is obviously going to change as we go along, but this is what I asked of you guys is, if we were drafting today, where would you draft Aaron Rodgers? And Todd actually has Aaron Rodgers over Russell Wilson in the 5th overall spot. So you feel pretty confident if we were drafting today that you would feel good enough to draft him number 5 overall, even though we have no idea. Like, you must at least feel good enough to know that he's playing in the NFL this year.
Yes, I do, in the sense of, his basing more of his mindset, because obviously when they drafted Jordan Love, went off and I'm going to win MVP. Just just force feeding the ball to Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones. It's great. So yeah, I'm very confident that no matter what, whether it's in Green Bay or hopefully maybe Denver, it'd be nice. But because I think Aaron Rodgers is that good. I mean, it's always the debate, whether reality or fantasy, who's better, who'd rather have Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers. And I know that argument's starting to teeter more to Patrick Mahomes, but Aaron Rodgers is still, I think, if we're looking at it, if I had to win a fantasy championship tomorrow, and between Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, much as I have Patrick Mahomes number 1, and not knowing where Aaron Rodgers is going to play, I will choose Aaron Rodgers.
All right, so Todd feeling incredibly confident that Rodgers is going to put up a top 5 fantasy season. Mikey, however, does not. In fact, Rodgers, if I did see this correctly, Mikey doesn't have Aaron Rodgers even in his top 32. So if we were drafting today, Mikey wouldn't even think about it taking Aaron Rodgers. Explain.
That's correct. And I got to say, I mean, I always thought like Adam Schefter or Jay Glazer was like the top source for NFL, but hey, Todd Diamond, he must know more than them because, you know, he knows Aaron Rodgers is going to play even though they don't. So, yeah, I'm not confident in it. Like, I mean, I don't know Aaron Rodgers' mindset, you know, like from everything that I try and piece together, it doesn't sound like to me like he plans on showing up to training camp next week, and that he doesn't sound like he wants to play in Green Bay at all this year. So I just decided, well, with that much uncertainty, until I know something further, it's not worth it to me to take the chance.
Yeah,
But Mikey, come on. You're telling me that you would rather draft Jared Goff, even if there's a 10% chance that Aaron Rodgers is going to play, you would still take Jared Goff over Aaron Rodgers. You take Cam Newton, Sam Darnold over Aaron Rodgers. Come on.
That's great.
Come on, Miguel.
This is why.
Show up now.
This is why I'm telling you that this class is not as deep as you think, because.
Well, that just explains why you should take him earlier than not at all, or at least not in the top 32.
No, this is telling you why you should try and get one of those elite guys so that you don't have to worry about it. I don't want to put. I'm trying to win a chip, and I don't want to put that much risk into the unknown when it comes to my quarterback.
But Mikey, come on. I mean, I get it. You want to get one of the top guys, but Allen Cook had Patrick Mahomes and didn't even make the playoffs. In fact, he's drafting first again.
And he'll probably draft.
You know, it's about building that team and taking risks on guys. And like I have Aaron Rodgers 6, and that could be high, but I'm not. If I'm a situation where if I'm up against Kirk Cousins, Big Ben, and Jameis Winston, I could draft Kirk Cousins, wait another round, and then get Aaron Rodgers and be fine. But I mean, if there's any chance he's going to play, you have to take him. I understand this is a hypothetical. We're talking about today. If we were drafted today, it's going to be totally different once we get to our draft day. But come on, Miguel.
So let me say this: say it is that point. We usually draft like right before the season starts. If we're in the same situation then as we are today, where he still hasn't shown up and he still hasn't said anything, I mean, are you still going to do that?
Yes, because he is a lottery ticket that could win you a championship. If I drafted, let's just say I drafted Matt Ryan as my number one guy, then Aaron Rodgers is probably going in the next 5 to 6 to 7 picks for me if he's still around. Because I mean, who are you drafting in the 12th, 13th, 14th round anyway? Maybe a second wide receiver or a third running back, or maybe your second tight end. I don't know, a rookie. But I think he's going to come in and play with such vigor. He's going to have that chip on his shoulder so big. Now, let's just even say, let's say he doesn't play at all, and I draft him in the 12th round or 11th round. So what? I still have Matt Ryan, and then I pick someone else up. But if there's a chance he could break and be a guy that can put up the type of numbers we've seen, then you have to take that chance. There would be no way I would not draft him at all.
Let me tell you who you are right now. You're the Denver Broncos.
Oh, come on.
You're going to be the team that's like, well, we're 3-5 right now, but you know what? It might happen. We might get Aaron Rodgers, and everything might be okay. And if you're okay with that, then that's okay.
I'm not saying first off, I'm not saying draft Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater there and Aaron Rodgers, but I see what you're saying. I think that's a lottery ticket. It'll happen. I think it's going to happen. We have to keep going. We have a lot.
Let me tell you something. You do know what they say the chances of winning the lottery are, don't you?
1 in a.
Sure, but you have to take the risk. I feel like you should take that risk. Because, I mean, yeah, all right. So there you go. That's how we feel about it. All right, next question. Which of these two second-year quarterbacks in Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow, are you drafting first? Todd, you obviously a big college guy. You saw these guys action probably more than me and Mikey, but you saw some NFL experience underneath them. According to your rankings, who would you draft first, and tell me why?
I have Justin Herbert, and maybe that's a little bit by default because Joe Burrow
and hold on, and where do you have Justin Herbert in your rankings?
Number 3.
God damn, 3rd?
Yeah.
Explain yourself.
Justin Herbert. He came in that, obviously he got in there because, the doctor didn't know what he was doing and, stab Tyrod Taylor in the chest there. So not the best way you want to come into a situation. But when Justin Herbert came into that offense, it was a completely different offense. Obviously he's not as mobile as Tyrod Taylor was, but I saw enough from Justin Herbert where I feel confident, like he could take that. He could really take that next step. And yes, I have him over Kyler Murray and even Aaron Rodgers, who I said, definitely, obviously, fantasy, royalty. But Herbert, like I said, last season he had 31 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. That is pretty good. That is pretty good for a rookie quarterback, because usually rookie quarterbacks we've seen in the past, even the great Peyton Manning, had a really crappy rookie season. 31 touchdowns and 10. That's pretty good. If that's a good sign for things to come, sign me up. And 4,000 yards passing, and so forth, and even a couple rushing touchdowns. So go figure that. So I'm very high on Justin Herbert. I think he might be, the one second year quarterback over Joe Burrow that might even take a leap and get the Chargers into the playoffs. So that's what I think of Justin Herbert.
Both you numbskulls have Justin Herbert over Kyler Murray. Mikey, why do you like Herbert over Burrow?
Well, I mean, Burrow's injury that he's coming off it's pretty significant. I like Herbert a little bit more because he's on a team that should be just a step ahead of Cincinnati right now. So he's already kind of built a full season worth of chemistry with, a top receiver in Keenan Allen. They brought in Jared Cook, who's more of a red zone receiving tight end. Eckler's back from injury. That should only help. They improved their offensive line, bringing in Corey Linsley and then Rashawn Slater in the draft. Their defensive players are starting to get healthy, so it's a better team than, say, Joe Burrow has in Cincinnati. Now, I think there's a lot of upside for Burrow, but like I said, it's a very serious injury. His weapons are a lot younger, so I give the edge to Herbert there.
Any concerns? I mean, they brought in a brand new head coach, and from what I understand, he's more a defensive-minded guy. Brandon Staley, who was with the Rams, and any concern that if they're more defensive, the passing attempts might go down, or if he's just that good, they're going to let him roll?
To me, yeah, there's some question to that, no doubt. But I mean, there's also a question that Staley can turn that defense around and make it like a top flight defense right away. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, but Herbert's that good. Because the fact of the matter is, it goes back to when he was in college. He had an opportunity, as a junior to come out early, and he didn't want to because he wanted to, go back and kind of hone in more of his skills or whatever, and he did, and I think it helped him. I think it helped him more with his accuracy and everything like that. So I think that definitely helped him a lot. And like I said, 31 touchdowns, and only 10 interceptions. That ratio is just beautiful. I mean, especially for a rookie. And now I get it. Rookies now compared to, go back to the 2000s and 90s, a lot of rookie quarterbacks had to struggle. I get that. And I know now it's like these rookies have more success early on, and then sometimes they teeter off, but I don't think Herbert's going to do that. I think Herbert's gonna he's gonna take that next step, and he might challenge, for, not just top 10 but top 5, in fantasy. There's a little prediction for you there.
That is Todd's prediction of Justin Herbert at 3 is pretty bold. Over Murray, Russell Wilson, Dak Prescott, Tom Brady. Goodness, that is some love for Justin Herbert. Let's keep moving on to Lamar Jackson, 2019 MVP. Last year, regressed, as I thought he would. Mikey, which version are we going to see this year of Lamar Jackson?
I think you're going to see somewhere in the middle. So I think you're going to see him improve. They brought in a couple of weapons. I'm not big on Sammy Watkins, but it's better than what he had. They brought in Bateman, the rookie wide receiver, as well to help him, give him that bigger receiver. So I think he improves as far as a passing quarterback from last year. We always know he's got the run game down, but I don't think he's going to necessarily reach the heights that he did, in 2019. So I've got him at 13. I think he finished like 17th or something last year.
Correct.
So I got him improving. I just don't have him improving into that, top 5-ish range like he was before.
Todd's close. He has him at 7th. So do you feel like a guy? So from 2019, he had 36 touchdown passes. He only had 26 last year. The rushing was pretty much the same to the passing touchdowns. Obviously made a huge difference. But Lamar Jackson, you're pretty high on there, Todd.
Yeah, I mean, and the reason I put him at number 7 was the fact that they did go out and get him a big wide receiver to throw to. And understand, nowadays in the NFL, yes, speed definitely is still the key. You definitely want that speedy wide receiver, but you also need, if you're asking a quarterback, maybe they'll say that you want a speedy wide receiver or a big physical wide receiver. They're gonna say big physical wide receiver. And that's what they did in the draft. And I think that'll help. Lamar a little bit when it comes to throwing the ball a little bit deep. So maybe he doesn't have to always run all the time. I mean, obviously, you want him to run too, because that definitely helps his value. But giving him a big physical wide receiver will just help the passing game a little bit more, because then you have Hollywood Brown, in the slot, and then you have Bateman on the left or right side, whatever case may be. And I think that'll help Lamar Jackson out just a little bit more. When because with anything, surround the quarterbacks with weapons, in all shapes and sizes, and you'll get success. Plain and simple. Plain and simple.
I have the big sigh after Lamar Jackson. I have him 10th, and I don't feel good about that at all. Obviously, his rushing is so dynamic, but the reason why I have him 10th, so I don't know what to think about it. But I mean, the thing that obviously stands out to me is he's not a big completion guy. He makes up for it with his rushing. I mean, he averaged 16 completions per game, and a guy I have right in front of him, Matt Stafford, he averaged 22 completions per game, and now he's even in a better offense. Patrick Mahomes, 10 more completions per game than Lamar Jackson. And to me, that just doesn't sound like someone I want on my team. And, I mean, you see it when he gets nuts. I mean, he has a great offensive line that can run block. They're so elite in that regard. He's the running game, and it's just the passing. He only had 2,700 yards passing last year. And I don't think Sammy Watkins is a big upgrade. Rookies take a bit sometime. And Marquise Brown was pretty disappointing until second half of the year. Mark Andrews really, and even then he wasn't as good as predicted. So I don't know. I just don't feel good about Lamar Jackson, but that's just me. I've always been the guy that they need to rack up the completions, because if touchdowns are flukier, they're harder to come by, they're harder to predict. If you can at least get me 20 completions per game, I feel better about that. Talk about some aging quarterbacks. Mikey, Matt Ryan, Big Ben, Kirk Cousins. Can these be guys drafted as starting quarterbacks, or are they backup quarterbacks in our league?
They could be drafted as starting quarterbacks, according to you guys.
Whoa! You have Matt Ryan 11, so and Big Ben 12. So you say
right,
that as well.
right, and I told you that I was comfortable with 8. So there you go.
All right, fine. Well put.
So yeah, for me, like I can't like go into the season and think that I have a chance of winning the championship with these guys. Like they're at the point in their career where where's the upside? Ben is playing behind the worst offensive line of his career, and he's got a lot of weapons, but I mean, he was to the point last year where his arm was about to fall off. And Matt Ryan, I mean, you had to experience that roller coaster last year where his offensive line was getting him killed every week. So if I could help it, I don't really want any part of those guys.
Okay, I understand that. The thing that jumps out about those guys, they throw the ball a lot. Matt Ryan led the NFL in completions, and he would finish 9th overall in points in our system. Now, yes, it was definitely a roller coaster. In some weeks, he had to throw 50 times a game because his team was behind in the game. Big Ben threw it a lot because the running game was terrible. And Kirk Cousins just had the offense was rolling, even with Dalvin Cook doing so well. And that may have opened some things up for him. So, I mean, I feel more comfortable taking those type of guys than Lamar Jackson, but yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of negatives for them. They've reached the pinnacle. You could say that Matt Ryan's got a new head coach in Arthur Smith, and it's the Titans offensive coordinator from last year, and they like to run, but they also drafted Kyle Pitts, and who knows if their boy Davis, the running back, is going to be able to handle a full workload. I don't know if you guys saw on Twitter today that Big Ben lost like 25 or 30 pounds. So I don't know if that helps him or hurts him. And Kirk Cousins pretty much has the same team coming back. What do you think about those guys, Todd?
Well, I mean, obviously, I have Matt Ryan 10th, Big Ben 16th, Kirk Cousins 14th. Big Ben, one scares me a little bit because, like I said, the offensive line is just horrible, and the fact you just said that he lost a little bit of weight, so obviously he's injury prone, might be even at a higher risk. I mean, obviously he was getting hit even before a lot. Kirk Cousins, yes, he brings back the same, basically the same team, but team's pretty good with Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson, who, again, I dropped him or traded him. We'll never know. And, Matt Ryan's always interesting in the sense, yes, he throws the ball a lot, but obviously no Julio, so obviously Calvin Ridley is going to be, the focal point now. Out of the three that I'm going to feel comfortable with more, as much as Matt Ryan sometimes can make you want to, throw something at the TV or punch a wall. I
think I threw a baseball at the wall.
You did throw a baseball. You did throw a baseball at the wall. It was epic. It was awesome. Probably, yeah.
I didn't throw it that hard, but I threw it enough.
You threw it enough where there was not a hole in the wall, but I would still feel comfortable with Matt Ryan over Kirk Cousins and Big Ben.
All right, so some aging quarterbacks to think about. Maybe they won't win you a championship, but maybe they won't lose you a championship. Yeah. I don't know. It's tough to say. You guys are not high on Kyler Murray.
I wouldn't say that at all. I'm very high.
Well, I mean, you have him 7th, and most people have them in the top 5. And yeah, that's not. I mean, we're picking at straws right now, nitpicking at this point, but to have people like Justin Herbert over him, it seems silly to me.
Well, I mean, Kyler Murray did finish 7th last year, so there you go.
But Justin Herbert was behind him.
Yeah, with one less game. I want to make this simple for you and tell you why there is some risk with Kyler Murray. And 7, I mean, I'm telling you, like, I am high on him. But take a real close look at the numbers. Kyler Murray at home is the superstar. Kyler Murray on the road is average.
So there's a split there. If we're talking baseball terms, right?
Yeah,
baseball
there's a split. I don't know why that is, but it's the facts.
I mean, I'm just looking over like his fantasy points, and it just 54, 40, 50. So there's 37, 45, 61. He does have some 20s in there on the road against the Giants, New Orleans, 53, 58, 54. This is a lot of big numbers there. But let's start with a board bet. I don't know if this is a good board bet, but let's just do it. We're going to roll with it because I want to get more board bets this year. You guys tell me which rookie quarterback will finish with the most fantasy points this season. Now, it could be based on your rankings, or maybe a guy figures things out and that would change how things go. But if I'm going to ask you today, and that's where it's going to start, who do you think ends up having the most fantasy points amongst the rookies? Mikey, we'll let Todd go first this time.
So the most I think is going to be Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, we haven't talked about Trevor Lawrence much. So and we know you're a Justin Fields guy, and there'll be some other quarterbacks that get some run. But Trevor Lawrence, why do you think he'll end up finishing with the most points in our league amongst the rookies?
Because he's going to start. He's going to start first. I think the Bears, they're going to try the Andy Dalton experiment, but I wouldn't suggest it. Just put Fields in there, but I think they're going to want to be patient with Fields, I guess, for whatever that's worth.
All right, Mikey, board bet. Is it Mr. Lawrence for you as well?
Yeah, and I don't think it is close. I mean, I think it's going to be Lawrence, and it's going to be Lawrence by a wide margin. I mean, he's going to be the guy from day one. Jacksonville's a terrible team. They're going to have to throw. He's the most talented quarterback of all the five, so it's going to be him, 100%.
Wow, 100%. He's guaranteeing the board bet win. I'm going to go with Justin Fields, and the only reason why is because Jaguars stink. I don't believe in the Urban Meyer experience. I agree they're going to have to throw a lot, but I think Fields has the better weapons. I think they'll be a more competitive team, and I think, yes, Andy Dalton could start game one, but we all know Andy Dalton stinks. And he's going to come in and electrify Chicago, and I believe he's going to have the most points at the end of the year. Since we're already over an hour, and I know people don't like it when we go over an hour, so we'll do these quickly. Ranking disputes, some guys that I noticed that were way off, not even close. One guy was Jameis Winston. I have him ranked 16th, Mikey 19th, Todd 25th. Todd, why do you hate Jameis Winston?
It's I don't know. It's the reason I have him ranked because that low. We'll see. This is going to be his first year being being the guy. So let's kind of wait and see on that one. So I'm not really too. I'm a little hesitant on him because I know I have Carson Wentz ahead of him. We don't know what Deshaun Watson and Tua obviously still trying to figure it out, but I don't know. Jameis Winston, kind of a little hesitant. Let's see, because it's been a minute since he's been the guy, in this, so we'll see what happens.
Mikey, quick thoughts on Jameis Winston?
Yeah, I don't like him either. And I don't want to draft him because I'm not convinced that he is the guy. I think with Taysom Hill still there, that he's still going to get some run even if they do name Winston the starter. So that's enter at your own risk. I won't be opening that door, though.
Here's the answer with Jameis Winston. Volume. He's going to get a lot of volume. They don't run the ball particularly well. I mean, yes, Kamara is great, but he more thrives in the passing game. And so if we're just talking pure volume, I like him better than some of the other guys I have above him. Todd mentioned a guy that we're going to talk about next, and Carson Wentz. I have him 23rd, Mikey 14th. Todd has him 24th. Mikey, all kinds of love for Carson Wentz.
I just think you guys are a little too much recency bias going on with Carson Wentz. Like anything and everything that could have went wrong in Philadelphia went wrong last year. Like there's some fault to that on him, sure. But I mean, the coach was on his way out. All their receivers were hurt. Their offensive line was the worst in the league. Their running back was hurt. They just didn't have anything. And now he's going to a stable situation where He's getting one of the best offensive lines in the league. Pretty dynamic running game. The receivers are kind of but it's not guys that, were coming off the street like Philadelphia had. And he's going back to the coach that got the best out of him, a season where he was almost MVP. So, I mean, I have him 14th, which is like middle of the pack. I think he could even be better than that. I mean, I think it's disrespectful to put him at 24th, to be honest.
Well, there's a lot of good and there's a lot of bad. They play defense and they run the ball, which is not going to give Carson Wentz. And that's if you believe Carson Wentz is even good. And yes, he had a couple of decent seasons. He had 1 year where he had over 33 touchdowns, but he's just not a volume guy either. And the way he made his fantasy seasons were by running the ball. And he's injury prone. You don't want him running the ball. And I don't think they're going to have him running the ball unless he goes against the grain and doesn't give it to one of the 3 great running backs they have over there. So talk about Winston with the volume. I don't think there's going to be a lot of volume with Winston. I'm not going to rely on him to do a lot. And I think there's other guys. There's not a lot. I feel like we know what we're going to get from Carson Wentz. And so I'm not thrilled to have him on my squad. Yes, he's in a position where he might be on a winning team, but he'll be one of those guys that just does enough to not screw it up. At least you hope. I think obviously he's been sacked so many times in his career, including 50 last year. And he probably won't get sacked that much this year because they have a great offensive line. But I don't think they're going to ask him to throw 30 times a game. I think it's going to be more in the 20 range. And if he's gonna throw it at all, he's gonna dump it off. Because you're right. I mean, T.Y. Hilton, you're not a big fan of, and the rest of the squads. Pittman, he's young and he's up and coming. He had some flashes, but there's not a lot there that I'm just like, oh, this is gonna be a great season for Carson Wentz. And I know he's trying to revive his career, but let's see what he brings up there. Okay, go ahead. You want to review?
I just want to say, like, even with Phillip Rivers, who was in his last year and on his last
I would take Phillip Rivers over Carson Wentz every day.
I'm just saying, like, even in that offense, like, Phillip Rivers was like a top 15 guy last year. So
Phillip Rivers is a better quarterback. He could throw the ball.
I don't. I think you guys are looking way too much at what happened last year with Wentz.
No, I'm looking at his whole career here. He had 16 touchdowns 1 year, 21 and 27 and 16. Sure, he had 33 1 year. 1 year. And even then, it was 3,200 yards passing. He's had 1 year for 4,000 yards passing. His completion percentage has been okay, 60%, around 60%. He's okay. He's not great. He had one great season. And even then, that was only 3,200 yards passing.
I would say 2019, he was over 4,000 with 27 touchdowns. I mean, it's all about him staying healthy, to be honest.
Okay. Last guy we'll talk about, unless there's anybody who wants to talk about, is Tua Tagovailoa. I have him ranked 27th, Mikey 17th, Todd 22. Todd, what are your thoughts on Tua with the Miami Dolphins in his second year?
Well, I mean, there was definitely there was good and bad. Obviously, with Tua, he definitely had the more typical rookie season that you expect out of a rookie. I mean, obviously, all the hype coming out of Alabama, like he was going to be the number 1 pick, and then obviously had the injury, and obviously was trying to figure it out, and then they were doing that bullpen type thing where Tua would start the game, and then they'd bring in Fitzpatrick, and you're like, the situation's not good. But at times, he definitely showed, he showed the flashes of what he did at Alabama, and the fact of the matter is, they went out and got some more weapons for him. I mean, see with Will Fuller, that's he's got to stay healthy, but when he's on the field, like you say, Eric, he's really good. So with Tua, it's just going to depend on if he can take that leap, and improve this year and coming into his second year, then it's all green pastures ahead for him. So that's what you have to look at for him.
I like how Todd just went through this whole positive scenario, and he has him ranked 22nd.
Right, which is just what I'm going to say. Like, then why do you have him ranked so low? Like, I don't understand.
It's high risk, high reward type situation, because it's you kind of have to see it. The reason I have some of the quarterbacks ranked ahead of them is just more of either you've seen enough of them where like, okay, they can maybe improve a little bit more, or one. I mean, I granted I have Trevor Lawrence ranked number 18th, and he's just a rookie, but Tua, he could definitely take a leap, but I'm not ranking him over the likes of even Derek Carr or even Fitzpatrick. Lawrence the only one, just because of what his potential is and what he's done, and or Big Ben or Baker Mayfield or Kirk Cousins. I'm not going to do that, so that's why. There's always a reason to my madness. May not understand it, but it's there.
Yeah, you're mad, all right. Mike, you mentioned earlier that you would skip some of the big-time names, or I mean, not say big-time names, the older guys, the Matt Ryans, the Big Bens, and try to go for the upside guys. Is this one of those upside guys for you?
He is, and like I think sometimes there's so much like negativity that surrounds Tua that people I constantly hear people say, well, he's not the guy, and people are judging him, I think, too quickly. Like, you have to remember, like, this is a dude that had such a major injury that hadn't played in a long time. When I look at how he played last year, he played like a rookie. Like, everybody can't be, Justin Herbert like he was last year and come right out of the gate and just be like spectacular. That everybody has their own learning curve. And you usually see that big jump with these rookie quarterbacks in their second year. And I think you're going to see that with Tua. And, them bringing in extra weapons for him, bringing in Waddle, bringing in Will Fuller. I think that it's only going to help him that much more. And I think he's going to have a chance to shine. I really feel like he's going to be like that surprise guy this year.
Does that mean you're on the Will Fuller train?
No, it just means it's
choo. Will Fuller.
I'm just saying it's another weapon to add for him.
It's a weapon.
Right.
But is it a good weapon?
He's a good down the field deep threat. Yeah, absolutely.
17 seems high. I think there's other guys I would take a chance on. I agree there's upside there. We'll see. And you're right. I think there's a lot of pressure. There was off-season talk about them going to get Deshaun Watson, and maybe that was before all that craziness happened. But you're right. But that just means management is not sure, or they're trying to win now. And there's just that extra pressure, and that's not fair to Tua. That shouldn't be on him. You hope he uses it as motivation. But if things aren't going right early, like you mentioned, he didn't play for the first 5 games of the season. So technically you could say if he doesn't play a full 16 game schedule, he's still a rookie. So he could still have that on him going into next year. And then with all that extra pressure, some people thrive, some people don't.
But yeah, I'll even say this though. That wasn't the Dolphins that were going after Deshaun Watson. That's everybody else in the media saying they should. They gave him the keys. They got rid of Fitzpatrick. They never said they were going after Deshaun Watson. That's just everybody saying, well, they should be the ones to do it because everybody's hating on Tua right now.
Well, and people were saying it too because Miami. Well, the reason people were saying that too was it was all basically because Miami had the most to give. It was always based on what you could bring to the table, and Miami had Miami had two first round draft picks. They could offer Tua as well too. So it was just more of, yeah, you're right, Mikey. It was what the media was saying, but the media was looking at their situation and saying, well, the Dolphins need to do this because the Dolphins have the more firepower to give to the Texans compared to maybe some other teams that would have to stretch their, stretch their dollar a lot more and per se, because like I said, you could just give 2 first rounds this year. This past year for the draft and 2, and that's it. That's all you have to do. Some teams like the Broncos would have to give up, maybe their next 3 or 4 draft picks just to get them on the phone. So, yeah, again, and who knows if that's gonna hurt his confidence? You don't know. Some players have thicker skins than others. So that, you got to just look at it that way.
All right, gentlemen, quarterbacks. We didn't get to talk about every one of them, but there's a lot to talk about. We didn't get to Baker Mayfield, or we didn't even mention Tom Brady, if you could believe that. And so many. Jalen Hurts was a guy I was kind of hoping we get to talk about, but hopefully we'll talk about those as we go along through. I mean, we're only in July, so there's plenty of time to talk about some guys. Maybe next week we talk about some running backs. And, quarterbacks. As Mikey mentioned when we started the show, a lot of storylines, a lot of stuff going on. So it should be exciting. So, gentlemen, thanks so much for coming on, chatting about some quarterbacks, and good luck in your rankings as we head into next week with some RB talk.
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Should get interesting, too, with these running backs. Oh, boy.
And we all pray that no one else, ruptures any Achilles or pulls anything because, as Todd likes to say,
they're not a dime a dozen.
Attaboy. So, for Eric Lansing, Todd Diamond, and Mike Bruno, we'll see you next time on the MHA Podcast.